And Pat, aid workers are scrambling to help as many people as possible before the summer rainy season complicates the relief effort.
Well, again, your heart goes out to these people. It's just like the earth is getting shaken with a series of tremors that are devastating. You've got the cyclone down in Burma. You've got this earthquake in China. You've got tornadoes in America. And I hate to use the term we're just warming up, but that's exactly what's happening. There's more that will come naturally and more that is going to be man-made. But I believe that if we read prophecy in the Bible, what we see is a statement that toward the end of the age, this type of thing will intensify, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. And the Apostle Paul described it as birth pangs with a woman with child. You know, those birth pangs come more and more frequently with more and more intensity until the child is born. So is this the birth pang of a new order, or are these just natural disasters? Nobody knows for sure, but those who are students of biblical prophecy would say it seems like we're looking at the birth pangs.
Overseas, Russia's foreign minister was the first to warn Israel today against attacking Iran as the world began to learn about a set of Israeli military maneuvers earlier this month. The Russians cautioned that there is no proof the Iranians are trying to build nuclear weapons, but the Israelis are not convinced. And new details are emerging about the Air Force drill they recently conducted designed to send a message to Tehran. From the Pentagon, here's David Martin.
Israeli warplanes have conducted what U.S. intelligence analysts say was a dress rehearsal for a strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Ominous action backed up by ominous words from Israel's ambassador to the U.S.
We cannot take this threat lightly. And as our Prime Minister just recently said, Israel will not tolerate a nuclear Iran.
The exercise took place on June 2nd over the eastern Mediterranean. According to CBS consultant Michael Oren, nearly 100 aircraft flew the 900-mile ranges needed to hit targets in Iran.
Israeli planes to reach Iran would have to refuel at least 3 times going there and back, and they were training that.
There's no mystery about the message that sends, says former Air Force Secretary James Roche.
The Iranians, I think many hope, will understand that when you get into this business, you get on a lot of people's target lists.
Just last year, Israeli jets knocked out this nuclear reactor in Syria, and in 1981 destroyed an Iraqi nuclear reactor. But a pilot who flew that mission told Bob Simon on 60 Minutes, Iran's nuclear program is a much tougher target.
We had one point to destroy. They have many points, many of them deep under the mountains, out of the ground, and it's a much more complicated problem than in 81.
Made even more complicated by these anti-aircraft missiles which Iran is buying from Russia and could have in operation by the end of this year.
You say the window for diplomatic action is closing. How much time is there?
Less today than we had yesterday. And it's running out.
For many countries, choosing between bombing Iran and Iran with a bomb is a tough call. But there's no doubt what choice Israel would make.
The towns we're in the early stages of what I would describe as the Third World War.
This is World War III.
I believe if you take all the countries I just listed that you've been covering, put them on a map, look at all the different connectivity, you'd have to say to yourself, this is in fact World War III.
The greatest war the world has ever seen will soon sweep over Israel, the Middle East, and in fact the entire world.
Radical Muslims have an end times theology and eschatology, and they believe it's their job to hasten the end of the world.
It will culminate here in the Middle East. The Bible says this war will come like a storm.
How can we really believe all of this was foretold in the Bible hundreds of years ago? And how are we to survive in the midst of this coming storm?
We are witnessing the beginnings of this great battle even now, as the storm clouds are gathering.
Nuclear weapons are about to become in play.
Today's headlines were written over 3,000 years ago in prophecies foretelling the conflict between Israel and the rest of the world.
What does the future hold for mankind? Is it an existence of luxury and ease? Will advances in science and technology take us to new heights and bridge the gap between nations? For those who believe that man is the ultimate force in the universe, that's the party line. But what does the Bible have to say about tomorrow? Prophetic words written thousands of years ago and taken from the most accurate source the world has ever known, the Bible. But one piece of information is missing. When will this fate befall the earth and its inhabitants? God's inspired word contains many clues to that mystery.
The Bible describes the days of Noah, when people would be scoffers, as a prediction of his coming in the end times. And it also describes catastrophic events, from earthquakes to pestilences to the earth groaning. In fact, that is happening now.
And frankly, why should we care? In our modern world of relative ease and comfort, why should we pay attention to these ancient words?
God has a plan for mankind, and it isn't just filled with tribulation and destruction. It's absolutely critical that Christians know what the Bible says about the days leading up to Christ's return, because Jesus himself said these days would be filled with deceit. We've got to be prepared so we can identify the false teachers, false prophets, and even the Antichrist himself.
Almost 30% of the Holy Scriptures are devoted to prophecies about the end times and God's final judgment.
Many Bible scholars believe strongly we may well be living in the final days. What leads them to this conclusion? Obscure interpretation of some cryptic Bible verses? Or could it be something much more obvious? Is it possible that the newspaper headlines and TV news stories we see every day are filled with signposts all Christians should be looking for? What will happen to Christ's church in the final days of immense suffering and tribulation? Will it be taken up before the darkest hours begin? Or will we be expected to endure the most terrible of days, time when God's wrath will be poured out on the earth?